On the far planet of Viridia, a great palace stood tall under twin suns. This palace was the home of the royal family, who ruled over many alien tribes. The people of Viridia were proud and strong. They believed only the perfect could lead. Strength was everything. Princess Ayla was born into this royal family. But she was different from all others. From the moment she opened her eyes, everyone saw she was not like the others. Ayla could not walk without help. Her legs were weak, and she needed a special chair to move. In Viridia, this was a sign of weakness. The Council of Nobles whispered behind closed doors. How can she rule? How can she marry? She is a burden. The king and queen tried to protect her, but even they could not change the rules of their society. The people did not want a princess who could not stand tall and fight. Ayla's days passed slowly inside the palace walls. She watched the world, from large windows dreaming of running under the bright sky. But no one came to visit her except for servants and doctors. Her only company was silence and loneliness. One day, the palace halls were filled with strange new faces. Ships from a faraway planet had landed. The human ambassador was here. Lieutenant Mark Jensen was tall, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He came from a world very different from Viridia. Mark heard stories about the disabled princess. Many warned him, "Do not waste your time. She is weak and useless." But Mark was curious. He wanted to see her with his own eyes. He asked the palace guard for a meeting with Princess Ayla. The guards looked at each other, surprised. No one asked for her. No one wanted to see her. But the ambassador insisted. When Mark entered the room, Ayla was sitting by the window in her chair. She looked at him carefully. She was used to people looking away or feeling sorry for her. But Mark's eyes showed respect, not pity. "Hello, Princess," Mark said gently. "I have heard many stories about you. I want to know the truth." Ayla blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She felt a small hope inside her chest. Mark asked questions about her life, her dreams, and her world. Ayla told him about her love for books, for the stars, and for stories of brave heroes. Mark listened closely, fascinated by her mind and spirit. Outside the palace, news spread quickly. The alien nobles talked loudly about the human who dared to be kind to the disabled princess. Some were angry, some were curious. The council feared what this friendship might mean. Ayla felt a strange feeling, something she had never known before. Someone cared for her, not because of her title or her body, but because of who she was inside. Days passed. Mark kept visiting her. They shared stories and laughed softly. For the first time, Ayla felt alive. She was no longer just the princess in a chair. She was a person with hope. But the palace was not kind. The council warned the king, "This human is dangerous. He will bring shame. You must stop him." The king looked troubled, but said nothing. Ayla knew the road ahead would be hard, but with Mark's friendship, she felt ready to face the world. And so, under the two bright suns of Viridia, a new story began. One of courage, kindness, and a bond no one expected. Would you like me to write part 2 next? Here is part 1 in simple third-person style with around 950 words. Part 1. The Outcast Princess. On the planet Viridia, the sun shone brightly over tall towers and wide streets. The Viridians were proud and strong. Their society valued strength and skill. The royal family ruled the land, and every child in the family was expected to be perfect, strong, quick, and brave. Princess Ayla was born into this family, but she was different. From her first days, it was clear she could not walk or run like other children. Her legs were weak, and she needed a special chair to move around. On Viridia, this was a problem. Weakness was seen as a fault. Many whispered that she was a burden to the royal family. The council of nobles met often and talked in low voices. "How can she be a leader?" they said. "How will she marry and bring honor to our people?" The king and queen loved their daughter and wanted to protect her, but even they could not change what society thought. Ayla spent most of her days inside the palace. She watched the sky and dreamed of freedom. But she was alone. Only servants and doctors came to see her. The other children in the palace ignored her. She was the princess, but she felt like an outcast. One day, a large spaceship landed near the palace. It carried visitors from a distant planet, humans. Among them was Lieutenant Mark Jensen, a tall man with kind eyes. Mark had heard about the princess and was curious. Many warned Mark not to waste his time. "She is weak," they said. "She cannot help your mission." But Mark wanted to see the truth for himself. He asked the palace guards if he could meet the princess. They were surprised. No one asked to see Ayla, and many avoided her. But Mark insisted. When Mark entered her room, Ayla was sitting by a window in her special chair. She looked at him cautiously. She had grown used to pity or fear from others. But Mark looked at her with respect. "Hello, princess," he said softly. "I have heard much about you. I want to know who you really are." Ayla blinked, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She felt a small spark of hope. Mark asked her about her life, her dreams, and her world. Ayla told him about the books she loved, the stars she watched, and the stories of heroes she admired. Mark listened carefully, impressed by her mind and spirit. Outside the palace, news spread quickly. The nobles were shocked that a human would treat the disabled princess kindly. Some were angry, some were curious. The council feared what this friendship might mean. Ayla felt a new feeling, a feeling she had never known before. Someone cared about her, not because of her title or her disability, but for who she was inside. Day after day, Mark visited her. They shared stories and laughed quietly. For the first time, Ayla felt alive. She was no longer just a princess in a chair. She was a person with hopes and dreams. But the palace was not kind. The council warned the king, "This human is dangerous. He will bring shame to our family. You must stop him." The king looked worried, but said nothing. Ayla knew the path ahead would be difficult. But with Mark's friendship, she felt strong, enough to face it. Under the twin suns of Viridia, a new story was beginning, one of courage, kindness, and a bond that no one expected. After their first meeting, Lieutenant Mark Jensen could not stop thinking about Princess Ayla. There was something special about her, not because of her title or her disability, but because of her strength inside. Mark wanted to learn more about her world and the struggles she faced. He asked the palace guards for another meeting. This time, the guards were more worried. Word had already spread about Mark's interest in the disabled princess. Some nobles whispered, "This human is causing trouble. He does not understand our ways." Still, Mark was polite but firm, and the guards finally allowed him to enter. Ayla waited by the window in her chair. When Mark arrived, she felt nervous. "Why do you keep coming?" she asked softly. Mark smiled gently. "Because I want to know the real you, princess. Not the one people talk about. The one who reads books, watches stars, and dreams." For the first time, Ayla felt someone saw her true self. She began to open up. She told Mark about her days inside the palace, the loneliness she felt, and how the nobles and even some family members ignored her. Mark listened carefully, never interrupting. "It is hard to be different," he said. "But your mind and heart are strong. That is what matters most." Ayla looked at him, surprised. On Viridia, strength was shown through action, battle, and power. Words and kindness were seen as weak, but Mark's words made her feel brave. As the days passed, Mark's visits became a secret light in Ayla's life. They talked about their different worlds, their hopes, and the meaning of courage. Mark shared stories about Earth, a planet where many different people lived, some with disabilities too. He told her how humans learn to help each other, to respect differences. On Earth, Mark said, we believe everyone has value, no matter what they can or cannot do. Ayla wanted to believe that was true on Viridia too. But she knew the council would never accept such ideas. One afternoon, while Mark was visiting, the palace guards interrupted. A high-ranking noble had arrived unexpectedly. Lord Varric, a powerful member of the council and a strict defender of old traditions. He had heard rumors about the humans' meetings with the princess and wanted to see for himself. Varric's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ayla and Mark. "What is this?" he demanded. "A human befriending the princess? This is disgraceful." Mark stood tall but calm. "I only wish to be a friend to her, nothing more." Varric sneered. "She is weak, and you are an outsider. This bond will harm our people." Ayla felt a cold fear, but Mark held her hand gently. "Princess Ayla is more than her body. She is strong in ways you cannot see." Varric laughed harshly. "You will regret this, human." With that, he left, but the warning was clear. After he left, Ayla looked at Mark. "Why do you care about me? Everyone else sees me as a problem." Mark smiled warmly. "Because I see a brave soul who deserves respect and friendship. You are not a problem. You are a person." Ayla's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she felt truly seen, but the palace was a dangerous place. The nobles began to spread stories that Mark was trying to take control of Viridia through Ayla. Rumors grew like wildfire, making many fear and hate the human ambassador. Ayla's family was torn. Her father, the king, worried about the kingdom's future and the scandal the bond might cause. Her mother tried to comfort her but seemed distant. The court whispered that Ayla should forget Mark and behave as expected. Still, Mark did not give up. He believed in kindness, in breaking old rules, and in a future where differences were strengths. One evening, as the twin suns set, Mark asked Ayla a question that surprised her. "Will you join me in a bonding ceremony?" Ayla stared at him, confused. "Bonding? What is that?" Mark explained. "It is a sacred tradition here on Viridia where two people connect deeply, emotionally and spiritually. It usually leads to marriage and a strong political alliance. But it is more than that. It is a promise to support and trust each other." Ayla shook her head. "I am disabled. No one will accept me as a bride. The council will never allow this." Mark took her hand gently. "Maybe they will not, but I do. And I want to show everyone that love and respect can break walls." For the first time in her life, Ayla felt hope grow stronger than fear. Maybe with Mark, she could change her fate. As the stars began to shine, the princess and the human ambassador made a secret plan. They would face the world together, no matter the cost. The days after Mark's proposal felt unreal to Princess Ayla. She had never imagined someone would ask her to bond, especially a human. On Viridia, bonding was more than marriage. It was a joining of spirits, a promise to stand as one in public and private life. No noble had ever offered Ayla such a choice. They either avoided her or spoke to her only out of duty. But Mark's offer had no pity in it, no political trick. His voice was steady, and his eyes showed honesty. Still, Ayla knew the danger. The council already disapproved of Mark's visits. If they found out he wanted to bond with her, they might force him to leave the planet. They met in secret to discuss it. The princess's room became their small world, filled with quiet conversations and careful plans. Mark explained human ideas about partnership, that love and loyalty mattered more than appearance or tradition. On Earth, Mark said, people can lead even if they cannot fight in battle. Some use their minds, others use their voices. Strength takes many forms. Isla listened carefully. She had never heard her life described like that before. Her people valued warriors and leaders who stood tall. But here was someone telling her she was already strong in another way. Finally, she made her decision. "Yes," she whispered. "I will bond with you." Mark smiled, and for the first time, Ayla felt like her heart was light. The bonding rituals on Viridia were long and filled with meaning. First came the declaration of intent, where both would stand before witnesses and speak their promise. Then came the circle of union, where their hands would be wrapped in a silver thread, symbolizing the connection between them. Finally, the gift of futures, where each gave the other something personal to show their trust. Mark and Ayla began to prepare. They kept their plans quiet, but news on Viridia traveled quickly. Servants noticed the ambassador visiting more often, carrying small gifts and strange objects from Earth. Nobles began to whisper again, their voices sharp with anger. Lord Varek, the same council member who had confronted them before, was the first to speak openly against it. In a council meeting, he stood before the king. "This must end," Varek said. "The human seeks to bind himself to our royal line through the weakest among us. He insults our traditions." The king's face was unreadable. He loved his daughter, but he also feared the unrest this could cause. "I will speak with Ayla," he said quietly. That night, the king visited her chambers. "My daughter," he began gently, "I hear you wish to bond with the human. Do you understand what this means?" Ayla met his gaze without fear. "Yes, Father. It means someone finally sees me for who I am, not for what I lack." The king sighed. "You know our people will not accept this easily. You may face rejection, even hatred." Ayla's voice was calm. "I have lived with rejection my whole life. At least this time, I choose my own path." The king left without promising support, but he also did not forbid her. The day of the declaration of intent arrived. Ayla wore a robe of deep blue, the color of trust on Viridia. Mark stood beside her, dressed in formal human attire, black with silver trim to honor Viridian customs. Only a small group was allowed inside the Hall of Stars for the declaration. Still, the tension was thick. Among the witnesses were two: council members, a royal scribe, and a priest of the bonding tradition. The priest began the ceremony. "Who comes forward to speak their intent?" "I do," Mark said. His voice was firm. "I seek to bond with Princess Ayla, to walk with her through all storms, to honor her mind and spirit." "And I do," Ayla said, her voice steady though. Her heart pounded. "I choose Mark Jensen, not for his world or his power, but for his kindness and courage." The witnesses exchanged glances. No one had expected such bold words from the princess. The priest nodded slowly. "Then, the circle of union shall be formed." A servant brought the silver thread. It was wrapped gently around their joined hands. Ayla felt the warmth of Mark's skin, and for the first time, she believed this was truly happening. But outside the hall, trouble was growing. Lord Varek had gathered supporters. They shouted that the ceremony was a disgrace, a break from centuries of tradition. Guards had to block the doors to keep them out. When the ceremony ended, Mark and Ayla stepped into the palace gardens for a moment of peace. But their quiet moment was short-lived. A messenger ran to them, pale and breathless. "My princess," the messenger said, "the council demands a public review of this bond. They say it cannot be recognized without approval." Mark's jaw tightened. "So they want to put us on trial?" Ayla straightened in her chair. "Then we will face them." I am tired of hiding." Mark looked at her with pride. The princess who had once been left alone in her chambers was now ready to stand before her entire world. Under the fading light of the twin suns, they both knew the hardest part was yet to come. The news of Princess Ayla's bonding ceremony spread across Viridia like wildfire. Some people were shocked, others angry, and a few curious, but among the council of nobles the reaction was almost the same: outrage. Lord Varec, leading the opposition, wasted no time. He gathered allies in the Grand Council chamber, their sharp voices echoing against the high walls. "This bond is a danger to our traditions," Varec declared. "A human ambassador tying himself to our royal line through the weakest princess. It is an insult." Several nobles nodded. "If we allow this, what comes next? Foreigners ruling us? Weakness becoming normal?" They decided to act quickly. The council sent a formal order to the king. The bond would not be recognized until a public hearing was held where both Ayla and Mark would defend themselves. It was a political trap, an attempt to humiliate them in front of the whole planet. When Ayla heard the news, she sat in silence for a moment. Her eyes moved to the window where the twin suns were setting. "They will try to break us," she said quietly. Mark, sitting across from her, nodded. "Yes, but we won't give them that. Victory! We'll face them together." For the next few days, they prepared. Mark studied Viridian laws, learning their rules and traditions so he could speak with their own words. Ayla practiced answering questions, thinking carefully about what to say. She knew the council would twist her words if they could. But while they prepared inside the palace, the outside world grew tense. News screens showed endless debates. Some citizens supported the princess, saying she had the right to choose her own partner. Others repeated the council's claim that this was a political move by humans. Crowds began to gather outside the palace gates, some holding banners of support, others shouting for the bond to be canceled. Guards stood ready day and night. On the third night, Ayla received an unexpected visitor. It was her mother, Queen Lyra. The queen's face was calm, but her eyes held worry. "My daughter," the queen began, "I came to warn you, the council will not play fair. They have gathered stories, twisted truths, and even bribed witnesses. You must be ready." Ayla's hands tightened on the arms of her chair. "Do you think I'm making a mistake, Mother?" The queen paused. "I think you are making the hardest choice of your life, and the bravest." Ayla felt warmth in her chest. Her mother's quiet support was a strength she had not expected. The day of the hearing arrived. The council chamber was a massive hall of white stone, its roof open to the sky. The seats were filled with nobles, scribes, guards, and even common citizens allowed to watch. At the center was a raised platform where Ayla and Mark stood side by side. Lord Varec began with his opening words. His voice was loud and commanding. "This bond is a shame to our traditions. The princess is unable to fulfill the duties of a royal partner. The human ambassador seeks to use her weakness for political advantage. We must protect Viridia's honor." Whispers spread through the crowd. Mark stepped forward. His voice was steady. "I came to Viridia with respect for your people. I met Princess Ayla and saw not weakness but strength. Strength of mind, strength of heart. My wish to bond with her is not for power, but because she is worth standing beside." Varec smirked. "Pretty words, human. But strength is shown through action, not speeches. What has she done for our people?" Before Mark could speak, Ayla wheeled herself forward. Her voice was clear. "I have lived my life in the shadows of this palace," she began. "Not because I chose to, but because my society decided I was unworthy. Yet in my quiet years, I learned, I listened, and I planned. My mind is sharp, my voice is strong, and I am ready to serve my people in ways beyond the battlefield." If that is weakness to you, then perhaps it is your definition of strength that is broken, the crowd murmured. Some nodded in agreement, others looked uneasy. Varek, however, was not done. He called forward a witness, a palace servant who claimed Mark had spoken of gaining influence over Viridia through the bond. Mark's eyes narrowed. "That is a lie," he said firmly, "and I can prove it." He presented a recording from his communication device, a conversation with that same servant, where Mark had only spoken about bringing human medicine to help Viridian citizens. Gasps filled the hall. The servant looked down in shame. Varek's plan was starting to unravel, but he pushed on, bringing up old traditions, citing ancient laws. Mark countered with careful knowledge of Viridian history, pointing out times when the people had adapted and changed for the better. Ayla added her voice again. "Our traditions should not be chains," she said. "They should be roots that help us grow." By the end of the day, the hearing was far from decided, but something had shifted. The council could see that both the princess and the human were not afraid to stand in the light. As they left the hall, Mark leaned close to Ayla. "They didn't break us," he said quietly. Ayla smiled. "No. And tomorrow we make them listen even more." But in the shadows of the chamber, Lord Varek watched them go, his face cold. The battle was far from over, and he was already planning his next move. The next morning, the great hall of Viridia's council was filled once again. The air was thick with tension, and the quiet whispers of those who waited to hear the final judgment on Princess Ayla's bond with Lieutenant Mark Jensen. The people of Viridia had been divided for weeks, some supporting the princess and the human, others afraid of change. Ayla sat quietly in her chair, her hands resting on the armrests. Mark stood beside her, calm and steady. Together they prepared to face the council's hardest questions yet. This was more than a trial. It was a test of their courage and of Viridia's future. The council leader, Elder Koran, rose to speak. His voice was deep and serious. "We have listened to both sides. Today, Princess Ayla and Lieutenant Jensen, you may speak freely. Tell us why this bond should be accepted. Convince us." Ayla took a deep breath. Her voice, though soft, was filled with strength. "My people," she began, "I have lived all my life with a body that does not move like others. For many, this made me less a burden. But I ask you, what makes a person truly strong? Is it the power of muscles alone, or the strength of heart, mind, and will?" She paused, letting her words settle in the room. "From my first breath, I was told I would never be a leader, never be worthy of respect. But I have learned patience, wisdom, and courage in silence. I have listened to my people's needs and hopes. I have watched, learned, and dreamed." Ayla's eyes scanned the council, meeting the gaze of many who doubted her. "Lieutenant Jensen sees these things in me. He does not fear what my body cannot do. Instead, he honors who I am inside. His kindness shows me that true strength lies in acceptance and love." Mark stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "In my world, Earth, many people face challenges, some physical, some mental. We have learned that those challenges do not limit a person's value. In fact, they often make a person stronger, in ways others cannot see." He looked around the hall. "Love and partnership are about respect and trust. Princess Ayla and I have built that trust. This bond is not a weakness, but a new strength for both our worlds." Murmurs spread among the crowd. Some nodded quietly, others looked unsure. Elder Koran raised his hand to silence the room. "Many here believe tradition is the foundation of our society. Change is dangerous." Ayla nodded. "I understand. Traditions guide us, but they should not be chains that hold us back. They must grow with us, help us become better." One of the council members, Lady Maris, stood up. Her voice was calm but firm. "Princess, what will you do if this bond is accepted? How will you serve Viridia despite your disability?" Ayla smiled gently. "I will use my mind and voice to help our people. I will be their advocate, a listener for those without power. Leadership is not only about battle, it is about heart and guidance." The council listened carefully. Then Lord Varek rose again, his face stern. "This bond threatens the very fabric of Viridian society. We have rules for a reason. To accept this union is to invite chaos," Mark answered without hesitation. "Rules can protect, but they should not blind us. A society that cannot accept love and difference will fall behind." The debate grew heated, voices rising. But Ayla remained calm, steady. Suddenly, a young servant stepped forward. He was nervous but spoke with honesty. "I have seen the princess work quietly to help others. She is wise beyond her years. I believe in her." This simple truth touched many hearts. As the sun set, Elder Koran called for silence. "The council will now vote," he said. The room waited in silence. One by one, the votes were cast. Finally, Elder Koran spoke. "The council has reached its decision. By majority, the bond between Princess Ayla and Lieutenant Mark Jensen is accepted." A wave of gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Some cheered, quietly. Others looked stunned. Ayla felt tears in her eyes. She looked at Mark, who smiled and squeezed her hand. They had won. But this victory was only the beginning. The morning light spread softly over the palace of Viridia. The twin suns rose, shining through the tall windows of the royal chambers. Princess Ayla sat by the window, feeling the warmth of a new day. Today was different. Today, the council had accepted her bond with Lieutenant Mark Jensen. The news had spread quickly. People across the planet were talking about the princess who had dared to change tradition. Some cheered, some whispered in surprise, but no one could ignore what had happened. Ayla looked at Mark, who was sitting nearby. He smiled, tired but happy. Together they had faced doubt, anger, and fear. Together they had won. The palace buzzed with quiet excitement and nervous energy. Preparations began for the wedding ceremony, a symbol of unity between their two worlds. Despite the celebration, Ayla knew the journey was far from over. Many still doubted her. Some believed old ways could not change. But she was ready. With Mark by her side, she felt stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Ayla met with leaders from all over Viridia. She listened to their worries and hopes. Some came with open hearts, others with cautious eyes. But all wanted to understand. Mark stood with her in every meeting, helping bridge the gap between human and Viridian cultures. He showed respect for their traditions while gently encouraging new ideas. Together, they began programs to help people with disabilities across the planet. New technologies from Earth were shared to improve lives. Slowly, the people of Viridia started to see that difference was not weakness, but strength. The day of the wedding arrived. The palace gardens were decorated with glowing flowers and shimmering ribbons. Citizens from many tribes gathered, some curious, some excited. Ayla wore a gown woven with threads that sparkled like the stars. Mark stood beside her in a formal uniform, his hand reaching out to hers. The priest of the bonding ceremony spoke words that echoed with meaning. Today, two souls join as one. Beyond body or world, beyond fear or doubt. This bond is a promise of trust, love, and hope. When they exchanged their vows, the crowd fell silent. The princess and the human ambassador spoke not only to each other, but to everyone watching. "We choose to stand together," Ayla said softly, "to face the future with courage." Mark added, "to honor each other's strengths and accept all differences." As the ceremony ended, cheers erupted. For many, it was the start of something new, a future where diversity was celebrated. In the weeks that followed, Ayla and Mark worked to make their vision real. They visited villages and cities, meeting people who once felt forgotten. New schools opened where children with disabilities learned alongside others. Healthcare improved, with Earth's technology helping those in need. Ayla's story inspired many. She became a symbol of hope and change, proof that strength is more than muscles, and love is more than appearances. At night, under the stars, Ayla and Mark would sit quietly and talk about dreams still to come. "Do you think our people will ever fully accept us?" Ayla asked one evening. Mark smiled. "Change takes time, but every step we take moves us closer." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words. 1 year later, the kingdom of Viridia was different. The old fear of weakness began to fade. New leaders rose, chosen for their wisdom and kindness, not just strength. People learned to value one another for who they truly were. Princess Ayla stood on the palace balcony, looking out over her people. The twin suns set in the sky, painting the world in gold and pink. Mark joined her, taking her hand gently. "We have come far," he said. "Yes," she replied, "but this is only the beginning." Together they faced the future, a future full of hope, unity, and love.